to welcome Rob Hurton from Signature Floors today to a training session.
Hi everyone.
On the Sunplank. This is the third one that we've done, Rob. They've been really well received by the members, logging in live and also downloading the modules after the event. Before we get started, everyone, if you could please identify yourself, if you can, with your name, with your login, just so that we know who you are. And try to keep your devices on mute if you can, unless you've got a question to ask, of course, then unmute and ask away. And last but not least, we are recording this session, so if you have a problem with the recording of the session, if you're asking questions and so forth and you don't want that to occur, please let us know so you can log out of the system and then access the training session at a later date. So just to talk about the category, again, this is what I've been doing with the other two sessions to remind members that the hybrid category sits in its own space. You've got laminate, timber, bamboo, vinyl, and then hybrid in its own category. And that's because it's quite a revolutionary and standalone product within the flooring industry and deserves to be treated separately. So within the hybrid space, there's the WPC product and there's the RCB product. And that stands for wood plastic composite, WPC, and rigid core board, RCB. So they're the two terms that we need to get used to and will become as familiar as LVT in our language. So hybrid, rigid core board, extruded method, and the Sunplank. So Sunplank's a fully extruded rigid core product. It's been introduced to the business just recently as a follow-up to the Velez product. The Velez product's been very successful in the business, and the Sunplank has now entered the business, and I think most stores, Rob, should have samples.
Yeah, pretty much. I would have thought we're at 85% by now.
Yeah, so if you haven't got your samples yet, you'll get them very soon. The Sunplank product has been very well received by the stores who have already got the samples.
Yeah, so far we're finding that we're getting great feedback to the size of the planks as well.
Yeah, so we'll just keep going through here the presentation. Hybrid sales for the group have been a huge success. We launched the category in May and sales have been astronomical. And of course, that's warranted the fact that we're needing to add the signature Sunplank into the range to add some extra offer, extra dimensions, and really spread that load that we're putting a few suppliers under stress at the moment with the hybrid sales. So definitely, we think the Sunplank product will be really successful and work well in the portfolio. So Sunplank Retreat. Tell me about the name, Rob.
Look, at the end of the day, we felt that the biggest feature that Sunplank could offer your membership, particularly, is the fact that it is actually it withstands extreme heat, for number one. So from an expansion and contraction point of view, it does limited expansion and contraction, yeah. But importantly, it doesn't warp and change its shape. So ultimately, when you've got direct sunlight and anything does occur, then it's got the strength within the product itself to actually withstand that and move any furniture or loads on the floor, yeah. As well. And, in front of floor-to-ceiling windows, it can be left all day long. We don't have any fading-related issues that we're aware of, because it's a PVC-based print film, like your traditional vinyls are.
Yeah, so that's how it came up with the name and the tie-in to the Retreat product.
Yeah, well, the logic there is that, sometimes you need a product which is LVT, and you have members that would actually believe in LVT, the traditional type of product, or if you wanted to go in direct wet areas where you couldn't actually use the floating method of installation. Yeah.
So
at the end of the day, it's got the best of both worlds. So you can actually utilise it in so many different applications and spaces.
So the colours have been inspired for the Sunplank collection from the Retreat LVT collection, haven't they?
Yeah, basically it's a direct copy. And I think at the show when we presented it first in May, I think, we actually had the two products side by side, and you couldn't actually tell the difference between which was the rigid core board and which one was the LVT. Yeah,
excellent. Well, we'll just run into a video now that Signature's made, and it's been really well received as well. Put that on just right now. On the Sunplank product. I think that was pretty self-explanatory that it certainly is good in these hot environments, Rob.
Well, that's the whole point of the message that we're trying to get across, that it's a great product for that environment particularly. I mean, it's great for a lot of other things as well, but the biggest downfall of a lot of products is that sun factor, and we feel that this is the answer to that.
I think what that video also showed is the importance of the testing regime that products like this go through in terms of the range of temperatures from very, very cold to quite extreme heats.
Yeah, it's like everything, you hope for the best with anything that you release, and to our detriment, I suppose, we held back releasing the product too, because we really wanted to try and break the product. So we took it and we did a whole heap of different things with it to make sure that it was actually fit for purpose to bring to market.
Yeah.
And that's how we went about it.
So in terms of construction, if we can bring up the construction screen there, we'll just get Rob to explain the construction of the Sunplank RCB product and how it's manufactured.
So like a vinyl, if you like. The front or the top decorative layer is printed. So that's a vinyl coating which is printed, and then it's got a PUR coating on the top of it. So that's why it's not going to fade, because a lot of the traditional LVTs might be paper underneath that. And so, and again, when we get further into the presentation, we talk about waterproofness. So because it's PVC, it's 100% waterproof, the surface as well. Whereas a lot of the old products, the decorative paper layer is made from paper. The second level, or the third level, sorry, there is, or fourth, is the rigid solid core, and that's the composite of limestone, which is 80%, up to 80%, and then the final layer is the built-in underlay, acoustic underlay.
Yeah, so very similar in construction to the Velez product, but as we'll see, this is longer, it's thicker, and it's a completely different product, but they're the same same idea.
They're brothers.
Yeah. So that's the construction of the product. Its overall thickness is 7 mil. So if you look at our whole range of products within our matrix, the Sunplank certainly sits there as a very long product, wide and also quite thick. The reason that we did that, Rob, was quite deliberate, wasn't it? We wanted to really protect installers from having that too much flex in the board.
Yeah, we were a bit nervous that once you went to 1.8 meters long, then you might get a little bit too much flex in the overall board. It was, and it's another feature of the product. I mean, from acoustic benefits wise and thermal and all those sorts of things as well.
And if we know that the reason why vinyl sales or loose lay vinyl sales have been so huge in Australia was that touch and feel, the apparent value, with customers feeling that the planks, the 5 mil loose lay planks, when they feel Sunplank, they're feeling this huge heavy plank. It's loses quality.
Yeah, if you put it up against another product, and let's not mix words, but the Velez product, it is just that little bit lighter as well. So you really notice the difference once. And so if you put them in the hands of the consumer, I think they'd go, wow, it's actually the apparent value that's really there.
Yeah, well, the cores are 20% thicker than the Velez. And obviously it needs to be because it's such a big plank.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. In terms of the testing that the product's gone through, we'll just bring up on the screen now. The products go through a lot of testing to make sure that they meet relevant standards from an EU point of view and from a US point of view. Carpet Court's putting some standards in play at the moment that we're developing, but in Australia, we tend to piggyback the overseas standards, Rob.
Yep.
So floor score is quite a hard one to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm not sure if our supplier is one of the only ones that has achieved it or not, but certainly is very difficult.
And I know the REACH standards in Europe all go to all sorts of the weird and wonderful chemicals that we don't want to have in a floor.
Yep.
So it's been tested to meet all those standards, so our members can supply the Sunplank product, knowing that they're
all
doing
certified.
the right thing. Yeah, that's right. So onto the specifications about the Sunplank. Rob, do you want to run through the specs?
Yeah, so it's not quite 6 foot. It's 1 metre, 813 millimetres, 223 millimetres wide, which is the nice oak width that we're seeing happening in all our LVT sales as well.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
7 mil overall thickness. It's got a 0.55 commercial wear layer, so it's suitable for all environments. And the backing is a 1.5 millimetre EVA.
Yeah.
There's 6 colours in the collection, and our price is $34.50. And just on the pricing, we've had a lot of queries about, why is it a little bit more expensive than other products that you're offering? It's purely because of the extra thickness, the extra length, and the fact that we've got no pattern repeat in the board as well. So the films and the manufacturing process that goes into delivering that is actually a little bit more expensive to deliver.
And it's got 20% more product.
Yeah, exactly. So you get what you pay for, unfortunately, is how it works. So I wanted to make sure that people are aware of the fact that there are some differentiators.
Well, if it were a carpet, if we were talking carpet, it's a 48 ounce versus the 42 ounce or something like that. So you'd be,
if not more,
if not more. So that's sort of the way to see it, I suppose, isn't it?
Yep.
In terms of access in the market, it is totally exclusive to Carpet Court.
100%. So both on the LVT side and on the Sunplank side, those 6 SKUs that we've currently got in the collection are 100% exclusive to Carpet Court.
And to the best of my knowledge, the not just the colours, but also the construction. So that thickness of board at this stage, to the best of my knowledge, in the market is ours.
Yeah, no, we haven't taken that construction to anyone else at this stage. Yeah. We're not really looking to at the moment. We think that's our little differentiator that we could offer to Carpet Court.
Yeah. So on to the colours, Rob, the six colours in the range.
Yeah. It was difficult, I think, at the front end to get a collection that was suitable to the whole country. And then secondly, it was difficult to find a lot of collections that actually had a pattern repeat of 1.8 metres, because we really did focus on the fact if you've got a heavily knotted board that you couldn't see that same knot reoccurring in the same board.
Yeah.
So the limitation that we had at the time to actually find a collection that could give us that was very high. Today we're seeing a little bit more, and all our development is heading that way, is to get more and more colours and designs that are suitable for the 6-footers. But at the time, so we were slightly a little bit hampered by what we could offer. In saying that, 3 or 4 of those colours, sell any day of the week, any other place. So, and it's quite interesting that we worry about darker colours, but they're actually being some of the strongest sellers in the collection today.
And I think it would be fair to say that there's a couple of additions on their way in the new year.
Yeah, we've already, as you know, we've signed off on a couple of new colours.
Right, yeah.
And we're just working on the last couple. And again, that has been a little bit of the feedback that we've had so far is, gee whiz, if you could do this, like it might be great for the country areas, but it might not be so good for the city. And and that's where we're trying to find the balance. But yeah, certainly we're hoping to have the other 4 SKUs available by February.
Yeah, excellent. So that's the colours. Warranties there, lifetime resi, 15-year commercial. So what makes the Sunplank product so good, Rob?
Yep. Well, I mean, the main things that we're focusing on are, sunproof, fade-proof, heat-proof, waterproof, and warp-proof. And I think that's the real features of the product. That you can submerge it in water 100%. And leave it there for 48 hours or 36 hours or whatever it might be. And the core, the surface and the backing do not absorb moisture in any way, shape or form.
Yeah.
The sun we've talked about already, the fact that because it's a PVC constructed decorative film as opposed to a paper constructed, then it's not going to fade, which is what the second feature is there. The heat we've talked about, that all our testing goes up to 80 degrees, and whilst in some places in Australia we might get up as high as that, I don't think it would be very often. Waterproof I've talked about, and then the board itself doesn't actually distort under that temperature. Yeah,
excellent. So onto one of the key things about rigid core board is that there is a myth maybe out there that, whenever we introduce new products, they kind of get the bulletproof tag and all that jazz. But rigid core boards still do expand and still do contract.
Yep.
But significantly less than vinyl.
Yep.
But the biggest issue, or the biggest benefit to the rigid core is this slide that we're about to bring up now for the members.
Yeah, look, it's funny. We should have put bulletproof on the slide before, sunproof, fade-proof, warp-proof, bulletproof. Look, at the end of the day, the truth is that nothing is 100% bulletproof, but talking about this expansion issue is really important, because it's a product, and if you do heat it up, it will expand to some extent. Yeah. And I think the misconception so far that I'm understanding is that people don't think it expands and contracts at all. You're right. It's at the lowest minimal levels of expansion and contraction. And I think what performance in the heat chamber that we showed, that you saw the traditional LVT peaking up. And what happens under extreme temperature is that floor does peak up, but because it's a PVC-based product, when the floor cools again, it can't actually bring itself apart. So with the solid core product, it's so dense constructed in the middle that it actually has ability to push an 80 kilo load. I think it was only 4 planks wide, so 1 meter wide. It could push 80 kilos if required at the temperature of 80 degrees outwards, and then has the ability to actually bring that load back in. Now, it might have been 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter, or 3 millimeter, who knows? But the truth is that floor didn't distort or warp in any way.
So you're not getting that peaking and and then you're not getting the gapping because it's locked in.
And that's what happened with all the PVC-based products, is they all failed, because that means once they peaked, the joint had actually broken.
I don't think we'd have a member in the whole of Australia that didn't have some problems with clip vinyl. From maybe not
clearly not ours,
but certainly,
you're 100%
certainly everyone's aware of it.
And a lot of it, and part of it comes down to installation. Certainly the problems that we've had as well, partly is fit for purpose, and should it have gone into the particular environment. But a lot of it was, this poor construction of product that actually let us down. Not let us, but let the industry down.
I think that's why the hybrid's been so well received, hasn't it? It's fixed that problem for us, the industry. It's addressed the waterproof thing for customers. It's sort of ticking all these boxes.
It made us all completely nervous when we started talking about it, because all of a sudden you're bringing back the click story and you're going, oh my God, I've been down this path before. But to be honest with you, when I first brought the product to you in April last year and sat down and said, I think we've got it. I really do believe, or did believe, even after such a short period of time, that it answered a lot of the questions.
I think as an industry as well, we've learned to test our products a bit more now as well compared to the old days. So I think that's helped as well.
Maybe.
And Rob, the 1.5 EVA backing on the back of the Sunplank really helps give it some strong acoustic performances.
Yeah, look, I don't know if this is going to be the boom that I think it's got the potential of being. I think particularly in places like New South Wales and Queensland, where there's such a huge boom of multi-storey high-rise apartments and things happening. So obviously not for the regional areas so much. But we've been doing a lot of acoustic testing over a long period of time, and the BCA or the NCC requirement is that you have a 62 LNW. Now that's not a test result, because that's where you get the 62 LNTW, but it gives you a base indication of where something needs to be applicable for the multi-level high-rise environment. And to give you an idea, a base slab of concrete might get a 68. If you put a bit of vinyl on top of it, it might be 64. What we're seeing, and the testing that you have to do as the bare minimum, is a 150 mil slab without any sort of sealing in it.
Yep.
And at this point in time, the product, without any additional underlay or anything else added to the product, is actually meeting the BCA requirement on a 150 mil slab. Now, we know a lot of the slabs are 180 mils. We know a lot of them are 210 mils. On an in-situ test that we did with Sunplank in Brisbane about a month ago, I think it was, we got a 48 or a 49 because it was a 210 mil slab, but it had no sealing. So I think, there's been a lot of money made by underlay manufacturers over the last few years, because they're all trying to meet this requirement of beating this 62 LNW or the 62 LNTW, the test in the environment. And I think I'm talking double dutch to most of us, but I think it could be a huge opportunity for the stores who actually gravitate to this and take it and take it to the specifiers and actually win big projects.
Yeah, the members that do some of the multi-res work.
Because there's a lot of money being spent with Palmer Acoustics and these guys getting these tests done, and a lot of them are failing. Fail, and then all of a sudden they find something that works, and they're putting 10, 20 mil of stuff underneath to try and create those ratings. So it's early days, and we haven't had a specification yet, and we haven't had an actual project to win on. But I'm pretty comfortable that it's going to be a big benefit to the membership. Yeah,
I think it's a huge story with the product for sure. So it's important to also point out during the Sunplank training session to the members that it's important that Sunplank is seen and compared to itself, nothing else, because it really sits. It's an apples for apples thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not Velez, it's not Aquatough.
Yeah, well,
it is what it is.
We want to stand on our own 2 feet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And be at the top level of the category, which is extra long, extra thick, no pattern repeat within our boards.
It's a premium sort of quality, if you like.
Look, that's the big point that we need to push.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, the installation cost is going to be the same, and the average job is going to be 60 square metres or 70. So if you add $5 or $6 onto that, you're really only talking $400 on a $5,000 job. So at the end of the day, we're not that far out of the ballpark anyway, with all the features and benefits that we add to for the product. Look, and then obviously we need to start hammering those key features of the category, and this isn't just retreat or Sunplank.
It's the hybrid category in general,
and that's why we had that little chart that I think just got brought down from the screen. But, and we're not saying that other products are bad, and we've got to be really mindful. I mean,
we all sell them.
Laminate's a great product, and so is loose lay LVT or multi-lay or glue lay or whatever you want to call it today. But there are reasons why you would use Sunplank over and above other products, and so. There's been a lot of noise about loose laying LVT or sticking LVT to a chipboard floor. Now, we as a company don't recommend that, and we never have. But this is where Sunplank comes into its own, is because it can be clicked straight over those environments. You can't put a loose lay product straight over ceramic tiles and those sorts of things as well. And that's where this product comes into its environment. So they're the things that we've got to be really hammering up, is the features of the product.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of...
I mean, a lot of them we covered off through the acclimatisation we talk about, telegraphing, which is the show through. It's about common sense too. When you're installing a product and you put it over a floor that's really high and low in different spots, well, that's not going to perform in any way, shape or form. So the telegraphing is where you've got a flat floor with ceramic tiles, and you've got the grout lines and things that you're just not going to see them coming
back. It heats up and they come through. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Or even going from one subfloor to another with an extension and so forth, where you get a little bit of a height variation in the floor.
Yep. But I mean, they're all pretty self-explanatory, and I think, people can use those to their own advantage. Yeah.
So on to the installation of the Sunplank, Rob. So do you want to run through some of the ways or the information that members need to know in terms of installing Sunplank?
Yeah, absolutely. So the points that we've brought up there, and we're going to change so I can show you a few things down in a second, but score and snap. So it's pretty easy on the short side to break. On the long side, if you have got a 1 centimetre amount that you're going to take it off, you're going to use a saw. I mean, it's as simple as it gets. You can't do it. So the score and snap you've got to leave a perimeter gap around the room, and that's more for the rafting of the room, so that it's actually
well, it is a floating floor, and
different parts of the house are moving at different places.
The house is going to move, that's right.
And we're saying that you don't need a transition through doorways, and you can install up to 400 square metres. So that's a pretty big home that you're going to try and cover off. So that if you're not leaving that gap, then the weakest point in every home is going to be the doorway, and that's where it's going to fail. So that's why you need to leave the perimeter gap around the outside. Slide and tapping into place side tapping is essential, and I'm trying to do a little visual here. It may not work out.
I should. Rob's going to come up to the camera with some product and try to.
I think if you can see that board there, and just at the top here particularly, there's a slight little gap there, and that appears to be pretty well clicked in, but down this end there's no gap at all. And so that's what will happen with a lot of your installers, and if they don't actually identify that or fix that at the time, then they're going to potentially have a problem. So there's two ways about it. Some people are talking a mallet. For us, you could just use a piece of material with an offcut with the male side of it, and you could push it into the side and then give your hammer a slight tap that way, and then you're going to reduce that there. It's a bit hard to do it here in this environment. So just a little piece of plastic. We're actually working on a tapping block of some description that you'll be able to just slide up to the side and give it a tap with your hammer as well. So we're recommending not to tap it when it's on a 45-degree angle like others may be. We're actually saying when you've actually dropped the flat into position, then you would put something like this and whack it across the side, just softly. Just
a gentle tap to get that last 1 or 2% of click.
And with something that long, it's going to spread the load over that, and it's not going to compromise our joint at all for the next board. Because if you don't get that square, and it's only a micro of a millimetre out, if you don't get that square, then your square edges start failing as well. So you really need to spend a little bit of time. It takes no time to do it, as in from an installation perspective, you know, we're talking seconds per board if you get your systems right. And you can just use a hammer, which is in the boot of your car. I'm hoping to supply these with every job that goes out eventually, or, you know, a little bit of common sense, just cut a piece of material and use it to protect the edge itself anyway.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I think there was when vinyl click first came out, there was a lot of manufacturers that didn't really understand exactly what you're talking about right now. And I think if a lot of people had done that, just clicking that last 1% in on the vinyl products back 3-4 years ago, they would have avoided some of the issues.
Some of the issues that they had.
You're not getting their full engagement.
Exactly right. So if you don't get it to lock in properly, then it's potentially going to be the weakest point is in the joint and the long way, and it's going to open up. Why doesn't it open up in the whole area? Because that's the weakest point, which is the one we haven't tapped.
And remember that we're talking about a 1.8 metre length here, so you might have that, you know, your left hand amount over here is in nicely, but you're just out a 15th down in the back corner, and that's enough to throw that head joint out, like you said. One of the things that we did say to the members during the Velez training was the importance of having that long joint in properly before you engage the head joint. And that if the long joint wasn't in 100%, that was going to then throw the head joint out, and then it wasn't going to, the male and the female weren't.
And then you get to a situation where you're banging it like crazy.
The floor's not engaging.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, oh gosh, the short side's broken. Whoops. You know, it's because, again, it's little things. They take 2 seconds, but it's education training, which we're committed to doing as well with your layers.
The hybrid products have been machined to a very, very small tolerance, haven't they? The clicking profiles.
If it's not as tight as it needs to be, then it's going to fail.
It defeats the purpose. That's
exactly
right. So because it is such a tight locking mechanism, it really does require that just little bit of care when you're putting in those long joints.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest risk is trying to put the floor down too fast.
Yeah.
And that's where the danger comes.
Yeah. So
and then matching scotias we mentioned as well. So in a couple of weeks' time, we should have matching scotias in stock. We've already ordered them for all of the Sunplank colours, but we're hoping to you'll be able to ring up and say, I want colour Sven or whatever it might be, and say I want matching scotia for the Sven as well.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to deliver that in lengths of 2.4 metres, and it's a hardwood. It's not a MDF core, and it's which as a consequence it becomes more expensive.
So is that a hardwood with a floor wrap, or is that been stained to match?
Stained to match. So again, you know, you can supply stuff for $3 a metre, or you can supply it for $9, and we went for the 9 option, or $9.50. I think we're going to be charging it out at. As I said, it's a bit more expensive, but it's going to perform so much better in situ as well.
Excellent. So a bit more news for members. The Sunplank products going to have a little brother at some point in 2018.
Yeah, look, we're hoping to have the first stock arriving in December for some sampling, or probably late November even, to start putting some sampling together. There's obviously, in every product matrix that you put together, you have good, better, best scenarios. So, you know, at the moment you've got good and better, I think, with your existing ranges that you've got available. You've got better and best, if you like, from the rigid core products. So what we're trying to introduce is Sunlight, which is going to be the good scenario. So it's your entry level, it's your cheap and nasty, if you like. It's the one to fight the price.
Value, we call it value. Value, it's just value. Not cheap and nasty, value.
So, but it's really going to be that value proposition. That look, it gives us the spectrum of the pricing from the bottom of that area to the top. And I think it's going to be, as long as we don't ask too much of it, it's a residential-based product only rather than a commercial-based product as well. It's going to be a 3 mil with a 1 mil backing, so it's a 4, as opposed to the Velez being 5.5 and the Sunplank being 7 millimeters.
Yeah.
So, and it's going to be a 1.2 meter long, slightly narrower as well, 175 or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, the value proposition of size and everything isn't going to be there, so then you can install it for a good price.
So Sunlight's going to complement Sunplank.
Yep.
And both the Sunlight and the Sunplank fit perfectly into the hybrid matrix at Carpet Court, and where all these products all sit. It also gives members who deal with builders, volume builders, a real option to take that product, the Sunlight product, to their volume builder, because it's really going to hit a price point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be a really exciting thing. That's going to be in early 2018.
Yeah, so the sample material and everything, hopefully November. Hopefully we've got the samples made and starting to be distributed by early 2018, so that at least come February, when the wheels start churning again for business, it could be even supported as a cash and carry sort of line as well, which is again that price point and that something that your members could push through as well.
And same factory as Sunplank?
100%.
Yeah. So same construction.
Same length, same joint. Actually, the locking system's the same size. It's just the thickness of the product is different.
Yeah. So to finish up, I'd just like to ask if there's anyone that's online that may have a question for Rob while we've got Rob with us today. No?
Don't all speak at once.
See Ben smiling. So some of the things that we'll just touch on while we're seeing if there's anyone that's game enough to come up with a question in the group of members that are logged in. So perimeter expansion.
We've touched on
6 mil?
6 millimeters. A lot of people have been asking the question, if we talk about rafting and if it goes through all different rooms, well, if we've only got a square room, what do we do? I've asked the manufacturer and I've put it to them and said, well, why would we need it if we've got the most bulletproof product? The problem is if it does expand and contract a little bit, it's going to push your walls out on the sides. So if you're going to go to the trouble of leaving 1 or 2 millimeters, why wouldn't you just leave 5 or 6 in the first place? So that's been their pushback to me. We're testing it. We're going down that pathway. So in a square room, in an environment, we're talking to ourselves about what we could actually offer there. But at the moment, it hasn't changed.
6 mil. Stick to 6
mil. Let's keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Why potentially break the product as a consequence?
So subfloor tolerance, Rob, when we're going into a job and the installers are looking at that subfloor, they're putting a straight edge down. What's your or Signature's recommendation in terms of?
We're all hoping that they will. No, look, at the end of the day, it's within the standards of everyone, 3 millimeters over a meter.
3 mil plus or minus over a meter.
Yeah, and we know that some of the floors are hard to do with that. But if you don't, you're going to compromise the product. So if you're getting bounce in the middle of a section of a metre long because you've got a 5 mil drop, you're mad. If it's not fit for purpose, and that's where you've got to be telling your client that you're providing the wrong product.
So same when it goes over a tiled floor, sort of talking that 3 mil kind of gap with tiles?
I'm not concerned with the gap in the width of the tile really at all,
yeah.
With the exception of if you're trying to put your join directly above that gap. So if you've got nothing to support your hitting down of that, then you're going to have a failed floor as well. So the old common sense factor has to kick in. But if that 5 mil or 8 mil or 10 millimeter gap is in the middle of the board, then I see no problem whatsoever.
Because of the thickness of the Sunplank. So,
and with the telegraphing and the heating up, and it's not going to come through, then I don't see a problem at all.
Yeah, well, that's good news.
So it's got to be flat, but it can have a gap.
Yeah, gotcha. And obviously, checking that deflection.
Look, if you're going over tiles and you've got a knuckle on the corner of one or something, it's got to be chipped off.
Yeah, just some common sense stuff there.
Yep.
And stairs. So commonly we're asked by members what we can and can't do on stairs in terms of these products. I think the slip standards come into play now on stairs?
Yeah, I think we're only at R9.
R9,
anyway.
P2.
P2, the new technology.
Yeah.
And secondly, we haven't really got an answer for the bullnose or the internal or the external of the stair as well. So, they're things that we're working on, but should we be working on them until we get an R10 product? Is a bit off.
Well, that's right, P3. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right, R10. And so at the moment, the answer is no.
No.
Maybe in the future if the embossing changes.
Which is, again, what we're working on. We're actually working hard on trying to get a P2 rating.
I think technically speaking, you could install it on a set of stairs at the moment if you could come up with a bullnose solution and you were willing to put down the nasty tape over on each step.
That could be the...
that would kind
let's not go there.
Though. One of the other common things is to cover off acclimatisation, so it can go straight from a member's warehouse or their showroom floor or from their freight depot or from your warehouse and be installed straight away.
Yeah. Look, all the messages that we're putting out there is that there's no acclimatisation. I think, again, common sense factor has to apply. If it's 40 degree plus, are they going to be working for a start? Possibly not. But the manufacturer gets nervous when you start talking about installing over 40, but I'm not sure many people who would. And under 10 degrees, I think just a little bit of time in the house, in the environment before you start installing, because you're going to be doing prep work and things as well, then that wouldn't be a miss either. So if you're taking it up to Mount Buller and it's -10 outside, don't take it from the truck and try and put it straight on the floor. We would suggest that leaving it in that environment that you're working in would be a better situation as well.
So between 10 and 40, Signature's happy for it to go straight out?
More than happy. More than happy.
Yeah, excellent.
I think that's even being conservative.
Yeah. And in terms of cutting it, we've discussed the scoring and snapping of the short side.
Yep.
Down the length, obviously scoring and snapping is probably difficult for most people unless they're the Hulk.
Look, maybe in the middle of a board and you smack it over your knee or something, it's one thing. But
circular saw works fine, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And these days you've got those electric ones which you can actually use. They're quite easy to get hold of. They're $40 or something at Bunnings or whatever. So that's what we would recommend. There's nipping tools you can buy. I've used tin snips on the product. There's all different ways. It's about, the mother of all invention is necessity. So I'd be imploring people, but just to have a power saw would be the easiest one.
We've heard that the sales of vinyl guillotines have gone through the roof since Carpet Court launched hybrid. That they're on back order at MJS.
Is that right?
Australia-wise.
Brett will be happy.
Yeah, that's right. You should send Carpet Court some commission, I think. But, so yeah, guillotine's good for that short joint as well.
Yep.
And then when it comes to going under doors, given that it's a drop lock hammer situation,
yes.
How does Signature recommend that installers deal with door jams?
Well, we're also saying that under a door jam, undercutting is going to give it the best finish.
Absolutely.
Because with the scotia going around the perimeter, that solves that part of the problem. But with a door jam, you must cut underneath it to give it the perfect flush finish. And then you're posed with the question or the problem is, well, how am I supposed to tilt it and drop it into place if I've done that? You're not. The bottom line is that you would just cut the tongue off the short side of the one that's receiving the one coming from the other end, and you'd use some vinyl. So you would cut the tongue off here. You probably can't see it, but you'd cut the tongue off there. And then your receiving piece would just slide in and you'd use some seam sealer.
Vinyl seam sealer.
Seam sealer in that joint, providing that not too gushy, but it just glues like anything. So you'll never be able to separate that board. That'll be the strongest part in the house anyway. So I'd be highly confident that that'd be the best solution after you've tested and made sure it's in the right spot.
So we might look towards finishing up unless anyone online has got some questions on the Sunplank for Rob? Try again.
Yeah, I'll fire a question at you.
Well, here we go.
So just getting back to your trims, I heard this about the Scotia, doing your hardwoods and all staying to match. What are we doing for ends in the doorways where we're meeting carpet and universal sort of things as well?
That's a really good question. Look, we're suggesting that You know, like some of the tile finishes are really handy when you're coming up to the sides. And well, mind you, you can actually put it up to the trim itself. It doesn't have to be left 6 millimeters apart from a doorway and things, as long as you've got enough supporting it at the other side of the room. So you can actually finish it nice and neat. There's nothing in the book that says you can't do it that way. So ceramic tile trims are always really nice finishing edges, square edges. You've got junior and senior ends that you can pick up from different people as well. Which
I would have thought the Esperance would still be right into the mushroom tea capping.
Oh,
absolutely. That's the only way to go, isn't it?
Yeah, we'd be quite happy with that as well. But look, at the end of the day, you know, there's solutions to be had in this category. And we've had a number of these questions already. And, you know, because it's a 7 mil product, what do you add to that? Where do you get the new category from? Because the major manufacturers, the people, the trim suppliers and people who are bringing things in aren't catering for that part of the market as well. So we're actually having to source solutions as well.
Yeah, there will be a little bit of catch up for the likes of AFS and MJS and affiliates and so forth to come online with some stuff.
We have actually physically found some wonderful tools for that. But they're really expensive. So all of a sudden I say, oh, it's going to cost you $40. You go, oh, you're mad. You're trying to rob me. But there's some stuff out of Germany which we found was sensational. You could screw to the floor and it had height adjustment in it, and you could do different things. But as soon as I say to you, I've only got silver in stock, and you say, how much is that? You know, you might. You've got to be careful of what I represent in the model as well.
Yeah. A work in progress then was the answer for that.
Yeah, pretty bad one, wasn't it?
Work in progress. Work in progress. No worries. Excellent. So is there any other questions from anybody? I think we've been pretty thorough today. I hope we have. I hope there's been some information there to take back. No, nothing else. Well, if that's the end, that's the end. So I'll say thanks very much, Rob, for coming along.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was good. And if anyone's got any questions, as in like in their outside world, and they've read through or listened to any of the literature, I'm always available to talk to as well. We've got Damien Ryan, our technical after sales manager as well, who's really up to speed with the product itself. So, you know, we'd be welcoming any phone calls. You've got an installation, the first job you want to do, and you've got questions, give us a call as well. You know, we could even hopefully send people out on site, maybe not to Esperance, although I'd love to come. But you know, there's a lot of tools behind us that we can actually support the process with.
And it's important, if you're a member out there that watches this video in coming days and you don't have your Sunplank samples yet, get onto your local signature rep, and I'm sure they'll give you an update and let you know it's just around the corner.
Absolutely.
So they should be hitting your store very soon.
Yep. Brilliant.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
Good on you, mate.
Cheers. Bye-bye.